Welcome to the Wellness Protocol, your source for guidance on metabolic health, hormones, and longevity. I'm Dr. Alessia Roehnelt, double board certified endocrinologist, and on each episode, I'll share simple tools rooted in science and experience to help you feel better, live longer, and take control of your health. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Wellness Protocol. I'm your host, Dr. Alessia Roehnelt, and today we are diving into a topic you've probably heard a lot about but might find confusing: cortisol. Should you be checking cortisol levels? Do you need to be on a supplement to lower your cortisol production? How can you optimize your cortisol naturally without taking anything for it? If you've had any of these questions, today's episode is for you. But before we jump in, please remember, subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, share it with your friends or family if you think they might benefit from this, because your support helps more people take control of their wellness journey. So what is cortisol and why do we need it? Well, let's start with the basics. Cortisol is a hormone that is made by your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands sit in your back just above your kidneys. It's oftentimes referred to as the stress hormone, but it really has a lot of critical purposes in the body. Cortisol is really needed for survival. It helps to control blood sugar levels and inflammation. It helps to manage blood pressure. It plays into appetite. So this hormone is necessary for life. If you had cortisol levels that were too low, you might start to experience symptoms like a low blood pressure because cortisol is needed to maintain blood pressure. You might experience a really reduced appetite because cortisol is there to give you an appetite. If your cortisol levels are too low, you might notice rapid weight loss. You're losing 50 pounds in a month. You're having trouble keeping weight on. These are all signs that cortisol might be too low. Without the hormone cortisol, your body will not be able to be healthy. So why does cortisol get such a bad name? Well, like any other endocrine hormone, too much of something is not necessarily a good thing. So while you need cortisol levels to survive, if cortisol levels are too high and they're too high all the time, it can lead to some medical conditions. For instance, prolonged increases in cortisol can lead to disruptions in sleep and insomnia. Very high cortisol levels can also lead to mood disorders like depression and anxiety. High cortisol has been shown to really affect quality of life as well. It can cause blood sugar to be too high and promote the development of diabetes. It can cause blood pressure to be too high, and it can certainly cause weight gain. Now, I know the symptoms I just mentioned may sound like a lot of things that you might be struggling with, such as weight gain or trouble sleeping or mood disruptions or even high blood sugars. But the chance of having a true problem with overproduction of cortisol is actually very rare. This condition is called Cushing's syndrome or Cushing's disease, depending on where the overproduction of cortisol is originating. And this is a rare condition that is found in patients with a tumor on their adrenal gland or a tumor on their pituitary gland, and it's telling their body to make too much cortisol all the time. There are certain tests that we can do to make sure patients do not have this condition. But like I said, having an actual overproduction of cortisol that needs to be treated is a very rare situation. Most people who are worried about cortisol or feel that they might have symptoms of too much cortisol do not actually have Cushing's. But they may very well have an appropriate cortisol response that has just gotten out of control. Cortisol is a stress hormone. So when your body is stressed, whether it's a psychological stress, like issues at work or at home, tensions in the family, or a physical stress, like a recent illness or a surgery, your body makes higher levels of cortisol so that you can get through that stressful event. These high cortisol levels help give you that blood pressure, help raise your blood sugar so that you have energy to get through the day. That stress response and increase in cortisol is actually protecting you so that you can get through what you need to get through. Your body is working the right way, but all of that excess cortisol, that will down the road lead to medical conditions. Over time, these daily spikes in cortisol can cause weight gain. They can worsen or cause insulin resistance. They can lead to fat storage, particularly around the area of the belly or the abdomen. They can disrupt your sleep. They can cause mental health conditions. They can worsen mood swings. They can even promote changes in your skin, like acne or accelerated aging, by promoting excessive inflammation and collagen breakdown. So while your body's doing what it's supposed to be doing under times of stress, it's supposed to be making high levels of cortisol when you're stressed. This chronic elevation in cortisol because of your stressful lifestyle is wreaking havoc on your body. So how can you fix it? Well, there are a lot of supplements out there that claim to lower cortisol. While adaptogens like ashwagandha, rhodiola, they may help some individuals manage stress, supplements alone are not going to be the solution here because you can't effectively manage cortisol by suppressing it artificially. You need to get at the root problem. The root problem is not your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are obeying the rules. They are doing what they were meant to do. In times of stress, they need to make more cortisol. The problem is the root cause, which is the stress in your life. A lot of patients will underestimate how much stress is negatively impacting their health. And I will oftentimes use this explanation of how cortisol works to show them that this excessive stress is actually having a physiologic impact on their body. This chronic stress, being in this chronic fight or flight state, is leading to sleep disturbances, mood disorders, excessive weight gain, especially around the belly. It's leading to high blood sugars. It's leading to high blood pressure. It is absolutely compromising your health. And there is not a quick and easy pill to take to fix this. This is really something that you need to improve from a lifestyle perspective. So what are some things you can do to manage your cortisol or stress levels naturally? Well, mindfulness and meditation has absolutely been shown to help improve stress levels. And again, by improving stress, you will improve or reduce that excessive cortisol production. Another thing to keep in mind is that physical activity, especially light physical activity like walking, can actually be very helpful in reducing stress and anxiety. Alternatively, really intense workouts all the time can actually cause a little bit of that cortisol spike because, again, your body is working out so hard, it's actually getting more and more stressed. So think about aiming for some balanced exercise routines. Maybe some days pushing yourself much harder or doing a more intense workout, but not every single day. Give yourself a little bit of a break when it comes to intense exercise and consider adding in some walking to help with that. Quality sleep is also so important. Now, if you feel like you're experiencing this excessive stress and these cortisol spikes, I'm sure part of it is because you're not sleeping. And when you don't sleep, anxiety is worse, things are more overwhelming, your stress level just goes up. So a few things to consider when you're trying to achieve a good night's sleep is that sleep hygiene is so important. What I mean by that is you need to set up the perfect scenario for sleep, and you need to really try to replicate it every night. So number one, having a very consistent bedtime. Unfortunately, that also means on the weekends, maybe not staying up too late or maybe not sleeping in too much because you want to get your body used to going to bed at about the same time and waking up at about the same time every day. That will be more helpful in training your body when it should be sleeping and when it's ready to wake up. Also, keep your room as dark as possible. Your body does respond to cues like blue light or sunlight, and any of that light coming in can affect your body's ability to fall asleep and stay asleep. I would also consider trying to set the temperature in your home a little bit cooler at night. The body has to cool down a little bit before it can fall asleep. So try to set that temperature a little bit lower. It will help the transition into sleep. And absolutely try to reduce screen time about an hour before going to bed. That blue light can overstimulate certain hormones in the body and make it difficult to sleep. You can also make changes to certain food groups in order to reduce stress and improve those cortisol levels. Eating balanced meals and limiting refined sugar is so important. You need those healthy fats. You need that amount of protein. You need those healthy vegetables, that fiber. All of those food groups together in a very balanced meal can help regulate those hormones and reduce stress. If you are eating too much sugar or too many carbs or too many packaged products, these foods will cause spikes in your blood sugar, a crash in your blood sugar, and that crash is sometimes considered a stressful event for your body, and again, can cause an increase in cortisol. And finally, never underestimate the power of meaningful relationships, whether that's a conversation with a good friend, whether that's even a hug from a loved one. Even 10 seconds of that physical connection and a nice strong hug can help to bring down stress. So don't underestimate the power of relying on some of your family or friends to help get you through something stressful. A question that I get a lot in my practice is whether a patient needs cortisol to be tested. We spoke about certain conditions where people actually do have an excessive amount of cortisol production, not related to stress, but just that their body is making way too much inappropriately. So who should be tested? Now, this is very personalized, and every patient is going to be different. Every scenario is going to be different. So this is certainly a conversation between you and your doctor. From my standpoint, I generally will recommend a patient get screened for excessive cortisol production when they have certain features of Cushing's syndrome or Cushing's disease. The classic features of these conditions would involve increase in abdominal obesity, meaning they have a lot of extra fat around the belly region, but very little fat in the arms and legs. I also look for things like large, wide, dark purple stretch marks. We're talking wide, like maybe the width of a cell phone. The reason this occurs is excessive cortisol production can actually lead to thinning of the skin. And so you start to see blood vessels underneath the skin a little bit more clearly. And we start to see these very dark purple, wide stretch marks, particularly on the belly. In classic Cushing's, we can also see things like rounding of the face, a face that's very red, or what's known as a cervical fat pad or excessive fat on the back of the neck. Another hallmark of this condition is proximal muscle weakness. That involves weakness of the upper arms and the upper legs, the thigh area. Now, for many people, they get tired doing something like walking upstairs. But for people with Cushing's, when you have that lower extremity thigh weakness, they actually have trouble walking downstairs. Another really common symptom is difficulty brushing teeth or brushing your hair, because to keep your arm up for that amount of time is extremely exhausting. Cushing's is also very chronic. It takes years and years and years to develop. So this is something that I might be on alert for in someone who's had maybe 5 to 10 years of the same type of pattern of weight gain, changes in their physical features, changes in their blood work. The testing that we do to evaluate for Cushing's can involve salivary cortisol testing, 24-hour urine collections, and an additional test where we look to see if your cortisol will appropriately suppress in the setting of taking a high-dose steroid. oftentimes we can just tease out clinically whether somebody might have a significant problem with cortisol, like a tumor, or whether they are just chronically stressed, and it's the chronic stress that is so detrimental to their body. Now, if you feel like you have some of these symptoms or physical exam findings consistent with an inappropriate amount of cortisol, like in Cushing's, of course, discuss this with your doctor and they can do the appropriate test to make sure that's not what's going on. But if you think you might have the more common type of high cortisol due to chronic stress, let's talk about just some practical tips you can implement starting today or tomorrow to really start to get on the road to a healthier lifestyle. Number one, I want you to start your day with calm activities. So try not to set your alarm for the last minute possible that you need to get out of bed. You don't want to jump out of bed rushed and stressed as if you slept in and missed your snooze. You want to wake up very calm. You want to give yourself time to get out of bed. You might want to consider doing something like journaling in the morning or just waking up early, having your coffee in peace by yourself before the kids wake up, while it's still a little bit dark outside, just a nice, calm entry into the day. Even some gentle stretching can help, or mindful breathing. Number two, make sure you're taking breaks during the day. I know a lot of people feel like their job is just go, 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 and they don't have a second to breathe when they're at work or at home. If they're with the kids, they don't have a second to themselves. But taking 30 seconds out of your day is not going to make or break anything. So if you say to yourself, you know what, at 11 a.m., as soon as it hits 11, I am going to stop for 30 seconds. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to focus on my breathing. I'm going to be quiet. That can help so much. And we're talking 30 seconds. We're not talking 2 hours. So try to implement these little scheduled breaks throughout the day so that your nervous system can reset. A really helpful technique I learned about at a recent longevity conference is to try sitting in a chair, putting one hand across your heart and the other hand on your belly. You want to close your eyes and take deep breaths. But as you inhale, you want to make sure your belly is filling up with air. I think a lot of us try to keep our belly nice and tight and those ab muscles strong, and you don't want that belly coming out all the time. But this is a moment where you are striving to have that belly come out as your lungs fill up with air. If you do this between 5 to 10 times, just 5 to 10 breaths, it can calm down your vagus nerve, which calms down your body and helps you relax. This can be a great reset during the day, especially if there's a lot of stress going on. And I love coffee, but too much coffee can be a bad thing. So coffee can raise your cortisol levels and raise stress and all of that. So try to limit the caffeine a bit. I normally will have 1 cup of coffee or 1 latte a day. Other people maybe 2 to 3, but I would say try not to be completely dependent on this caffeine because what it's doing, especially if you're having it later in the day, you might get a little boost in your energy, but it's very temporary. You'll still have a crash and you're still stimulating that cortisol production, that stress response. So trying to limit caffeine a little bit. So the key takeaways I want you to have after listening to this podcast is number 1, cortisol isn't bad. It is necessary. You need cortisol to live. And if you are having high cortisol because you're constantly stressed, your body is actually doing what it was meant to. Your cortisol is supposed to go up when you're stressed. The problem isn't the cortisol. The problem is the stress. The stress is the true problem, not the hormone. Supplements are not going to be your primary solution for this. It is going to be lifestyle changes. And you can't underestimate how much chronic stress has a negative impact on your health. I wish I could write a prescription for someone to say less stress in your life, because that is what you need to start your path to a healthier well-being. I hope this episode helped you understand the myths and the truths about cortisol. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you have questions, feel free to message me on my Instagram account, EndoHealthDoc. Feel free to comment on the episode. And of course, subscribe, rate, review, and share with your friends. Until next time, take care and remember, your health is your greatest wealth.